The female reproductive system is made up of different parts, which includes the uterus, endometrium, fallopian tubes, and ovaries. During the menstruation cycle, each of these parts has a specific function. For example, inside each ovary there are thousands of follicles, which are cells with an immature egg. The egg is the female reproductive cell, preparing for ovulation. At the start of your cycle, the follicle-stimulating hormone stimulates a large number of follicles. As the follicles get stimulated, the immature egg inside them begins to grow, mature, and also produce estrogen. Estrogens then go into the bloodstream and send the signal to prepare the uterus for pregnancy. At this time, the endometrium, which is the inner part of the uterus, is covered with a thick and spongy layer. Day 7. The dominant ovum produces a large amount of estrogen that travels directly to the brain and activates the pituitary gland, which is responsible for producing large amounts of hormones, including luteinizing hormone, which stimulates ovulation. Day 14. The luteinizing hormone begins to act on the ovaries, causing the dominant egg to mature rapidly and detach from the follicle. Now one of the fallopian tubes surrounds the follicle, causing it to open completely and expel the egg. This is known as ovulation. At the end of the fallopian tube is the fimbria, a set of cells that are responsible for collecting the recently expelled egg and transporting it to the entrance of the fallopian tube. Once here, by means of muscular contractions, the ovum is pushed towards the center of the uterus. Day 15. Starting on day 15, progesterone is produced inside the ovary, which is the hormone that helps the second phase of the menstrual cycle to occur. These days, the abundance of progesterone can make you feel more active and productive, and you'll also notice an egg white-like vaginal discharge being released. At the same time, you'll feel a greater desire to be with your partner. Towards the end of the cycle, the production of progesterone decreases drastically, and that is when the so-called premenstrual syndrome occurs, which can cause various symptoms such as mood swings, inflammation, pimples, fluid retention, colic, pain, and sensitivity in the chest, among other emotional and physical symptoms. Day 28. This day, the menstrual cycle is completed. Your body is about to menstruate. Day 1. It is the first day of menstrual bleeding, through small contractions that we know as menstrual cramps. The ovule and the thick and spongy layer that had formed in the endometrium are discarded in the form of menstruation. And so the whole cycle begins again. This is the typical 28-day menstrual cycle. However, cycle length can vary from woman to woman.
Fertilization is the epic story of a single sperm facing incredible odds to unite with an egg and form a new human life. It is the story of all of us. During sexual intercourse, about 300 million sperm enter the vagina. Soon afterward, millions of them will either flow out of the vagina or die in its acidic environment. However, many survive because of the protective elements provided in the fluid surrounding them. Next, the sperm must pass through the cervix, an opening into the uterus. Usually, it remains tightly closed, but here the cervix is open for a few days while the woman ovulates. The sperm swim through the cervical mucus, which is thinned to a more watery consistency for easier passage. Once inside the cervix, the sperm continues swimming toward the uterus, though millions will die trying to make it through the mucus. Some sperm remain behind, caught in the folds of the cervix, but they may later continue the journey as a backup to the first group. Inside the uterus, muscular uterine contractions assist the sperm on their journey toward the egg. However, resident cells from the woman's immune system, mistaking the sperm for foreign invaders, destroy thousands more. Next, half the sperm head for the empty fallopian tube, while the other half swim toward the tube containing the unfertilized egg. Now, only a few thousand remain. Inside the fallopian tube, tiny cilia push the egg toward the uterus. To continue, the sperm must surge against this motion to reach the egg. Some sperm get trapped in the cilia and die. During this part of the journey, chemicals in the reproductive tract cause the membranes covering the heads of the sperm to change. As a result, the sperm become hyperactive, swimming harder and faster toward their destination. At long last, the sperm reach the egg. Only a few dozen of the original 300 million sperm remain. The egg is covered with a layer of cells called the corona radiata. The sperm must push through this layer to reach the outer layer of the egg, the zona pellucida. When sperm reach the zona pellucida, they attach to specialized sperm receptors on the surface, which triggers their acrosomes to release digestive enzymes, enabling the sperm to burrow into the layer. Inside the zona pellucida is a narrow, fluid-filled space just outside the egg cell membrane. The first sperm to make contact will fertilize the egg. After a perilous journey and against incredible odds, a single sperm attaches to the egg cell membrane. Within a few minutes, their outer membranes fuse and the egg pulls the sperm inside. This event causes changes in the egg membrane that prevent other sperm from attaching to it. Next, the egg releases chemicals that push other sperm away from the egg and create an impenetrable fertilization membrane. As the reaction spreads outward, the zona pellucida hardens, trapping any sperm unlucky enough to be caught inside. Outside the egg, sperm are no longer able to attach to the zona pellucida. Meanwhile, inside the egg, the tightly packed male genetic material spreads out. A new membrane forms around the genetic material, creating the male pronucleus. Inside, the genetic material reforms into 23 chromosomes. The female genetic material, awakened by the fusion of the sperm with the egg, finishes dividing, resulting in the female pronucleus, which also contains 23 chromosomes. As the male and female pronuclei form, spiderweb-like threads, called microtubules, pull them toward each other. The two sets of chromosomes join together, completing the process of fertilization. At this moment, a unique genetic code arises, instantly determining gender, hair color, eye color, and hundreds of other characteristics. This new single cell, the zygote, is the beginning of a new human being. And now the cilia in the fallopian tube gently sweep the zygote toward the uterus, where he or she will implant in the rich uterine lining, growing and maturing for the next 9 months until ready for birth.